All right, thank you for joining us. The National Guard could soon be off the streets in Memphis. I'm Ruben Diaz. It's a story that ABC 24 first broke for you last night. We are covering that story and a potential press conference that should be happening here in just the next couple of minutes. See, a Nashville judge is blocking the use of the National Guard. However, this ruling won't take effect immediately. The state has at least 5 days to appeal that decision. Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris and City Councilman J.B. Smiley Jr. are speaking out about the ruling, calling it a major step forward. Now, we do have a crew on the scene. We're going to be able to take you there as this press conference begins. You can take a live look right now. You can see all the microphones are set up at the podium, but they have not started speaking just yet. Let's take a look at kind of how we got to this point and what exactly has happened at this point so that we can set the stage as they begin their press conference. Again, important to note that a judge with a ruling says that went against the National Guard, saying that Governor Bill Lee was not within his rights to do that. So this all started when the National Guard troops first started arriving in Memphis on October the 9th. The deployment came a couple of weeks after the launch of the Memphis Safe Task Force. Now, we were told the Guard would not be making any arrests while they were here. Then on October the 16th, Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris declared a state of emergency because of the surge of arrests by the task force. The next day, Mayor Harris, along with several other Democratic Shelby County leaders, filed a lawsuit against Governor Bill Lee over the deployment of the National Guard. Now, the suit claims that the governor violated the Tennessee Constitution. Yesterday, a judge agreed with that. Governor Lee has not responded, by the way, to this ruling at this point in time. I can read you a little bit from yesterday's ruling, a little bit about when it was released and what was said. That judge delivered that major ruling in the lawsuit, filed, of course, by those leaders, saying that sending any more National Guard troops into Memphis would require the removal of those already deployed. The ruling is a major step forward for those that were opposed of the National Guard. In the detailed 37-page ruling, the court issued an injunction. Here's what all gets to it. It blocked Governor Bill Lee's deployment of the National Guard to Memphis, finding that he likely exceeded his authority under Tennessee code. The judge concluded that state law permits the Guard activation only in situations such as rebellion, invasion, or a clearly defined grave emergency, and the judge found that none of those existed. Nor had any local officials requested the assistance of the National Guard. Now, the ruling also noted that the governor failed to confer or obtain authorization from the General Assembly, which is a step the law requires before the militia can be called into active service in non-emergency situations. Now, because of these violations, again, I'm reading this for you. Because of these violations, they're insufficient to decide the case. The court emphasized it did not need to reach the constitutional question under one of the articles there. So basically, the judge saying that they did not meet the criteria to have the National Guard issued here in Memphis, saying that Governor Bill Lee did not meet all of the requirements. There was not a rebellion. They had not been called by other officials and had not been asked by the General Assembly or spoken to the General Assembly about that situation in order to release the National Guard onto Memphis streets. Again, this has been a point of contention and since the beginning of this conversation. Again, that all started around October the 9th when the first troops were first deployed here in Memphis. We did hear just 2 to 3 days ago, that even more troops would be sent into Memphis, tripling the amount that were currently here at this point in time. And then that's when word of this injunction came out that was going to be blocking any further deployment, and then telling the governor and the state that they were have to reduce the deployment and rescind those troops. But the state does have 5 days to respond at this point in time, and we are likely waiting to hear what that response will be, if they will fight this injunction or go along with it. Again, this is all from a ruling that just came down yesterday, and that ruling again says that the deployment of the National Guard was not done lawfully according to the state constitution, and that Governor Bill Lee was not within his rights to do that. So that brings us to where we're at now. As soon as that happened, as soon as that notification came out, we got word that there would be a press conference today with J.B. Smiley Jr. and Mayor Lee Harris, where they would be discussing that ruling and what that means for Memphis going forward. We are waiting to hear from them now. This was supposed to begin around 12:30, but as you can see, nobody is at the podium at this point in time now. We do have a reporter who's going to be live at the scene. Desmond Nugent is going to be there throughout the course of this press conference. So we'll be able to hear from him as he hears what's going on as well. We'll also bring you that press conference live as it happens. But again, this all centers around a judgment from a judge yesterday, a ruling from a judge yesterday that blocks the deployment of more National Guard troops into the city of Memphis during this safety task force mission that's happening right now. So we'll take you back through kind of the timeline of what we got. Well, it seems like we're just now getting to the podium. So let's go ahead and take you now live to this press conference and let you hear what they have to say. We'll recap it as soon as it's over.
Shelby County, and good afternoon, and thank you for being here. And let me lay a little bit of background, and then we will hear from one of our attorneys. We'll also hear from plaintiffs that are assembled here. And in addition, we'll hear from some remarks from some of our affiliated organizations. So just to set the table and lay out some background, on September 15th, Governor Lee sat in the Oval Office with President Trump and other assembled federal officials. And what we saw was dumbfounding and disappointing. Our hope during that Oval Office meeting was that Governor Lee would have said to those assembled, "Mr. President, Tennessee is a free state, and we have no authority to use the military against Tennesseans." Unfortunately, that did not happen during the September 15th Oval Office visit. Instead, Governor Lee agreed to send troops to West Tennessee, even though he knew or should have known that that was patently illegal. For one thing, in Tennessee for over 150 years, the Constitution has provided that the militia shall not be called into service except in case of rebellion or invasion, and then only when the General Assembly shall declare by law that the public safety requires it. That is applied to every Tennessee governor for the last century and a half, and applies to this governor as well. Yet on October the 10th, the National Guard was sent to town, joining dozens of partner agencies that were doing the work. There's no clear reason why the National Guard was sent to town. As I said, there were other agencies already working here, and many of them were trained for domestic civilian law enforcement activities. Well, no clear reason for sending the National Guard to Tennessee except to comply with the orders of Donald Trump. The effect of this wrong-headed and illegal decision has been catastrophic to some of the most important laws and norms of our country. But we are pushing back. We've seen successes in the last several days in Oregon and Illinois, and previously in California, and now in Tennessee. The military should not be used against Tennesseans. As the court says in their opinion, on page 11 in my version, there is no rebellion or invasion currently taking place in Memphis or Shelby County, Tennessee. Neither Shelby County nor the city of Memphis has declared a breakdown of law and order or other existing condition in Memphis or adopted any resolution requesting the governor to order members of the National Guard to active state duty in Memphis or Shelby County. The General Assembly has not declared that public safety requires or that other conditions exist that would warrant a military deployment to Memphis or enacted any law requesting deployment of Tennessee National Guard personnel to Memphis. This is, we believe, the first state action against the unlawful deployment of the military against Americans. Now, we realize we have a very long way to go, and we're up against the mightiest of adversaries, the White House and Donald Trump, Governor Lee, and federal officials, some of whom are willing to do whatever it takes to satisfy their whimsy of the day. But this is still an important first step and a testament to our commitment to preserve the principles that make this the greatest country on earth. All right, at this time, I'd like to give an opportunity to make some preliminary brief remarks to one of the lawyers in this action on behalf of the plaintiffs, Joshua Salzman. And I think he's piping in on Zoom, so we'll defer to Joshua, and then we'll go to plaintiffs for some opening remarks. Joshua.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Joshua Salzman from the Democracy Forward Foundation. I don't have much to add to everything that Mayor Harris already said. I just want to emphasize a couple of points about what this ruling establishes. First, which is a strong affirmation of the principle that no executive, be it a president or a governor, is above the law or has unfettered discretion to send troops in for purposes like civilian law enforcement. The second thing that this opinion does that I think is worth highlighting is on page 34 of the opinion. It recognizes that the residents of Memphis have a strong public interest in not being subjected to domestic military occupation for law enforcement purposes under circumstances where it's not statutorily authorized. And we're incredibly gratified that Judge Moskal recognized and affirmed that principle. Now, in terms of where things go from here, Judge Moskal is giving the state a window in which to seek permission to pursue an interlocutory appeal. That's something they can ask for permission to do, and we'll continue to litigate from there. But whether we continue to litigate before Judge Moskal in the Chancery Court or on appeal, we are looking forward to continuing to defend the rights of the people of Memphis to be free from unauthorized military occupation.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Josh. And Josh will stick around in case there are questions. At this time, we'd like to turn our attention to the plaintiffs. First up is Councilman J.B. Smiley.
2017, I was sworn in to practice law in this state, and I took an oath. 2020, I was sworn in as a member of the Memphis City Council, and I took an oath. Both of those oaths require me to uphold the laws of this state. Every elected official, every practicing attorney takes the same oath. That oath also applies to the duly elected governor of this state. Section, I've been very clear. On a plain reading of the statute, Section 58-1-106 prevents the unilateral action by the governor to send military into our communities. One of the things that the chancellor noted in her order particularly was the very de minimis impact that the National Guard has on the Memphis Safe Task Force. To put it in terms that I would say, they're not doing anything. We're spending millions of dollars for the National Guard to simply walk our streets, laugh and play when we have some very pressing issues in this community. Instead of wasting dollars on people who don't want to be here, who are not impacting our issues in our community, there are some places those dollars can go. They can go to the infrastructure projects we have in this community. As a matter of fact, there's a very talked about one on Elvis Presley. We heard today in the city council meeting that their project may not be finished until 2030. Invest millions of dollars on Elvis Presley. We all know that there's billions of dollars in deferred maintenance in our schools. Invest those millions of dollars into schools. We know that crime was already trending down in September prior to the arrival of the National Guard. How about investing dollars into places that matter to people? We're wasting time, we're wasting resources for a political show. And if I might add, this is deeply troubling. Not just for those who take oaths to uphold the laws of this state. It's deeply troubling for everyone who calls this community home. Because we allow the government to continue to abridge our rights. The question you should be asking yourself is, when are they coming for me? We have to stand up, we have to push back, and we shall not, and we will not be bowing down. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd welcome some brief remarks from the state senator from the Davidson County, Nashville area, Jeff Yarborough. Jeff Yarborough.
Thank you, Mayor Harris, and thanks to everyone there. Yesterday's ruling was a big affirmation for the rule of law in the state of Tennessee. For over 150 years, our state constitution has been crystal clear that there are significant limits on the governor calling out the National Guard. And here, you don't have to be a deep legal expert. You just have to read the Constitution and the statutes, and it's clear that what the governor's doing here doesn't comply with the law. And so there have been some responses today sort of about the effects on public safety, but what we should be highly skeptical of any operation that's supposedly about law and order that depends upon breaking the law.
Yeah.
And so we know, as the councilman just referenced and as the reporting has shown, that the other forces that are operating in this operation can do this work without the National Guard. There's no need for the militarization of law enforcement in Tennessee. And the court today just did restore the basic principle that it's governed in the state of Tennessee for over 150 years, that we do not use the military to engage in basic law enforcement. I think that's great news for the state of Tennessee. It took, while it's just the basic reading of the statutes and laws, I still think we should applaud the court for having the courage to do her job in this instance, because we do know that there's been a lot of pressure. There will continue to be a lot of pressure on the judiciary to look the other way on what is an obvious and clear violation of state law. But I'm glad to see that this step was taken by the court and that we're starting to see some relief.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Senator Yarborough. At this time, we'll hear some remarks from Keith Caldwell, who is the president of MICA, the largest interfaith coalition in Memphis.
Thank you, Mayor. Greetings. As the mayor said, my name is Keith Caldwell. I also pastor the historic Centenary United Methodist Church here in South Memphis. We are excited about the ruling because Governor Lee has overstepped his boundaries. This overreach from the president and the governor by sending in National Guard to occupy a majority black city is very paternalistic, and it's just a shame that we had to come to do this. If it was about public safety, then we would have passed the permitless carry. We wouldn't have the state overturn that. And so we know there's a direct correlation with crime and poverty. So this money could be directed to poverty. We need quality transportation for people to get to work and to school through reliable transportation. We need affordable housing. We need this $1 million a day, $100 million could be better spent around infrastructure and about rebuilding our city. So as a member of faith community, I want to encourage all people of faith to step up, to get off your couches, to come and join us as we uphold democracy by not allowing the Constitution to be shredded in our very presence. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Are there others that want to make comments? Mr. Foster? Cardell? Okay, very good. Do you want to take questions now, or do you want to wait till after the next part? Okay, so we're going to turn our attention to one more speaker, and then we'll open it up for questions. We know that lots of our communities, particularly communities of color, have been impacted during the course of the federal occupation. And so we want to make sure, particularly right now in this time of need, that we put out as much information as possible about where people can find resources. Every week we've heard voices speaking about troubling accounts of racial profiling, and those anecdotal accounts have not been sufficiently responded to. And this has impacted the ability of folks to access vital services. And so with the holidays coming up, families have been even more vulnerable with respect to their need for food. And we know that that this is also a time when there's a high incidence of domestic violence reports usually. However, right now, there are families that we've heard that are afraid to make those reports given some of the stress on their environment with the occupation. So we've invited spokespeople from two local organizations that are making accommodations to continue to supply communities of color, even those that can't necessarily leave their home right now, to make some comments. And so the first spokesperson is Jessica Miller. So Jessica, let's get Jessica up here to make some remarks. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Miller, and I'm one of the organizers with the Immigrant Pantry, a volunteer-run mutual aid network delivering food and essential support to immigrant families across Memphis. Thank you, Mayor Harris, for giving us space today to lift up the truth of what our immigrant neighbors are living through and the work our community is doing to keep families safe and fed. The Immigrant Pantry didn't start as a program. It started with fear and with heartbreak. When the Memphis Safe Task Force began operations, families in our city suddenly found themselves living in a completely different reality. Traffic stops turned into detentions, workplaces became traps, and homes were left with missing a parent, a provider, or a loved one. People were taken without warning, without explanation, without time to even say goodbye. We started with 8 deliveries a week. Most recently, we completed 180 deliveries in 1 week. Not because hunger suddenly appeared, but because fear exploded. The crisis didn't end yesterday, and it didn't begin with the National Guard. The threat families face remains very present. And when people ask, "Who are you serving?" I want the answer to be with the truth. We are serving the young mother who was pulled over on the way to her newborn daughter's first doctor's appointment, whose husband, that baby's father, was taken on the side of the road, and she was left all alone holding her 1-week-old child and no way to get home. We are serving the grandmother who is now caring for 4 children after her son was sent back to a country he hasn't seen since he was their age. We are serving the mother who fed her infant sugar water for 2 days because she couldn't afford formula, and she was terrified that if she left for work, she may never come home to those children. This is who we serve: families, children, human beings who deserve safety, dignity, and peace, not terror. And to anyone watching who has been targeted or left living in uncertainty, I want to say this from my heart: Eres importante, eres amado, no estás solo. Last night's ruling matters. It affirmed what many already knew, but removing the National Guard does not remove the fear. It does not unbreak the families, it does not undo the trauma, and it does not stop the ongoing actions of the task force that created the crisis we're in the first place. That is why our work continues, because the harm continues, and because families cannot wait for systems to catch up to their suffering. Every week, volunteers across Memphis fill cars with groceries, diapers, formula, and 60-pound boxes of food. We show up quietly, safely, and respectfully with no questions about status, no paperwork, no judgment, and no conditions. This is not charity. This is solidarity. It is community defense. It is Memphis taking care of Memphis when our most vulnerable neighbors are being failed by the systems meant to protect them. We have no grants, no institutions behind us. We're just regular, everyday people showing up because we refuse to abandon our neighbors in their darkest moments. To immigrant families in our city, we see you, we will keep coming. You do not have to choose between safety and feeding your children. And to anyone in Memphis who wants to help, your donations, your groceries, your volunteer hours become hope. They become stability. They become food on the table for families who have been traumatized, targeted, and too often forgotten. The Immigrant Pantry exists because this community chose compassion over cruelty, courage over silence, and solidarity over indifference. We will keep showing up for as long as families need us, and we are deeply grateful to everyone who stands with us. You can find out more about our initiative at www.indivisiblememphis.org. Thank you.
And for our last speaker, we have Inez Negrete. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly, Ms. Inez.
I think you are trying, Mayor.
Okay.
Negative.
Negrete. Okay. After you, Inez.
Hola, everybody. My name is Inez Negrete. I'm the founder and executive director of Casaluz. Casaluz is the only non-profit organization in the Memphis, Shelby County area that culturally and exclusively serves Hispanic victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and other violent crimes. For many years, Hispanic community members have been disproportionately targeted by violent crimes. Offenders often exploit the barriers and challenges Hispanics face, such as language barriers, discrimination, and bias from institutions meant to assist them, lack of trust in law enforcement and the judicial system, and fear of deportation, among others. These factors have long contributed to a significant gap of mistrust between the local police department and the Hispanic community. For the past 10 years, Casaluz has collaborated with local law enforcement agencies to help bridge this gap. As part of our institutional advocacy efforts, impact the safety of our entire community. Currently, immigrant victims are extremely reluctant to seek help, even when their lives are in danger. This fear has intensified with the presence of the Memphis Safe Task Force and the racial profiling experiences many community members have reported. This year, policy changes have resulted in reduced funding for Casalus, forcing us to downsize our staff, despite the continued and growing need for our services. Every day, new clients walk through our doors, most of them hesitant to report crime or engage with the judicial system. Casalus provides free, confidential, and cultural responsive services, including legal advocacy, accompaniment to court hearing, assistance with filing police report and order of protection in our own office, individual counseling, support groups, guest speaker sessions, community education, and emergency assistance, such as temporary housing, transportation, culturally appropriate food, rental, and utility assistance. If you know anybody that is a Hispanic victim of a violent crime, please just tell them, don't be afraid, you are not alone. You can reach out to Casalus at 901-500-8214, send a voicemail, a text, or you can send a private message to Facebook or Instagram at Casalus Memphis. We also are just a regular office Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. We are not an emergency center. Thank you so much, Mayor, for this opportunity.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll open it up for some questions. Yes, sir.
Mine isn't a question, mine is more a statement of support. Number one, the nation is watching Memphis and what happened in Memphis and Shelby County. So it's like a blueprint for other areas that might be impacted. I work and live downtown, so I'm down here 24 hours a day. The National Guard primarily patrols up and down Field Street, doing absolutely nothing but running resources that could be used in protecting the citizens of Memphis by adding police officers, staffing the jails, and all those other things that need to happen. We have immigrants that are afraid to come to work, afraid to go to church, afraid to come out. But moreover, it's hurting tourism for the city of Memphis because people don't know what that means, how it translates if they come to the city of Memphis. So we really need to make sure that the National Guard is removed from the city of Memphis.
Thank you for that comment. Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, Mayor Harris, you mentioned it, and Mr. Saltzman might be able to also chime in here, but this is just the first decision of a long road of decisions. Of course, the state has a few more days to try and appeal. We might get one as soon as today. If so, this could take months before everything plays out. Mr. Saltzman, I don't know if you can explain a little more about what the process could look like, and also if we could expect to see any loopholes or anything else from the state.
Go ahead, Josh.
Sure. So unfortunately, there is a little bit of uncertainty right now, and I'm in the business of making predictions about how either the state is going to proceed or the courts are going to rule. We are at a point now where the state has been given 5 business days to initiate the first step towards an appeal process before the temporary injunction takes effect. If and when they make that filing, we'll respond from there and do everything we can to try to get this resolved as quickly as possible and to get the military off of Memphis streets. But beyond that, I'm afraid I can't offer any specifics on the timetable.
Okay, very good. Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, Mayor, at the end of last week, we saw that the number of troops in Memphis was set to increase to about 130 last weekend. It's basically doubling. Do we expect that increase to still happen while the injunction is pending, or is that going to stall out?
Well, that may be also a technical question, but I certainly hope that we've seen the end of increases given what the court has ruled. But Josh or others, anybody want to comment on that? And let me repeat it just in case Josh didn't hear. Will the number of troops increase given the court order? Go ahead, Councilman Smiley.
Okay, so my position as it relates to that, and what we've seen with this administration is a total disregard for the law. We see it with this current governor's administration. We see it with the gentleman who occupies the White House. They do not care what's written in our statutes or our Constitution. And because of that, We need good people to consistently say, hey, this is wrong, and we must meet that complete disregard for laws that are in place with the appropriate amount of litigation. And that's what you see here. And if they don't leave, when they're instructed by the court to leave, we have to continue doing what we're doing now, which is being vocal, visible, and continue to push back against this complete chaos.
Okay, other comments, Josh? Any other comments on that?
No, I don't think I have anything to add to that. I think what the opinion from Judge Moskal correctly recognizes is that the deployment of even one National Guard member to the streets of Memphis under current conditions is unlawful. It obviously is unsettling and disturbing that the state would be going the other direction and increasing the deployment. But from a legal merits perspective, even one National Guard member is too many, and it's our position not allowed either under the statutes of the Constitution.
And I should say, if you look at the filings in totality, as there was increases in the number of National Guards, we made additional filings to bring notice of that change to the court's attention.
Shelby, obviously this is a long-standing situation, but what kind of message would you give to Memphis right now? Because a lot of us know living right now. What's your message as far as this injunction and I guess what's next for the benefits of this scenario?
All right, you have been listening in on this press conference. Mayor Lee Harris, J.B. Smiley, and other leaders discussing the judge's ruling that deemed the deployment of the National Guard that it was against the state constitution and therefore unlawful by Governor Bill Lee. I'll take you through a couple of the quick questions and answers that we heard. One of the questions was somebody asked what the timetable might be for the National Guard to get removed. The response was from the attorney that there was no actual timetable and it'd be really hard to speculate. But as of right now, they could not tell you when that might happen. You also heard Mayor Lee Harris mention that they continued to increase the filings as the National Guard troops increased in the city, basically saying that as more troops were deployed, they would adjust their filings so that the court would know how many troops had been deployed so they'd have an accurate number as they went forward. Again, there's 5 business days for the state to respond and to decide whether or not they want to challenge that. After those 5 business days, we'll have a better idea of what's going to be happening moving forward. I don't know if we'll be able to take our reporter, Desmond Nugent, who's been live there watching it, but we will have a full coverage of this coming up for you later at 5 and 6 o'clock as we continue to break down exactly what this means for the people of Memphis. But for now, that's going to do it for our coverage, our live coverage right now of this latest press conference and this latest ruling from the judge. Again, we'll have much more coming up for you later on at 5 and 6.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 24 Plus app everywhere you stream.